I can't undo what happened. Not for me. Not for you. I can't reach into your timeline and pull you out of the years that drained you. The job you stayed at because it was safe. The relationship you held onto out of fear. The nights you silenced your own voice just to keep the peace. You can't undo 3 decades. But you can do something just as powerful. You can interrupt the story. You can stop the bleeding. You can name the wound. You can step out of the loop. Even if you've lived inside it for years. And I know how tempting it is to believe you're too late. That the cost is too high, that the damage is done. But time doesn't heal by default. Time just keeps moving. What heals is what you're willing to see in this moment. Because every time you choose to look at your life without the mask, without the excuses, without the distraction, you break the illusion that your past still owns you. This isn't poetry, it's biology, it's psychology, it's energy. You don't need a second chance. You need 15 minutes of truth. 15 minutes of not performing, of not justifying, of not avoiding the part of you that's been quietly waiting for this very moment. I'm the time distorter, and I don't offer miracles. I offer mirrors. And if you're willing to look into this one, even for just 15 minutes, you might finally feel the future begin to shift. You're not behind. You're just unwilling to grieve. You keep saying you're behind, that you should be further, that you missed your chance. But what if that's not the truth? What if you're not behind? You're just carrying weight you never stop to feel. The real weight isn't time lost. It's truth avoided. You've survived so much. You adapted. You smiled through it. You told yourself, it is what it is. But you never grieved. You never let yourself feel the betrayal of your own silence. The ache of staying too long. The burn of dreams that dissolved quietly while you were busy keeping it all together. And that grief, it didn't disappear, it leaked into your confidence, into your choices, into the way you show up for things that are meant for you, but still feel too far away. You think you're stuck because of circumstances, but you're stuck because your nervous system is still tangled in regret you've never allowed to breathe. This isn't about dwelling, it's about reclaiming. Because grief doesn't only mark what you've lost, it frees what you've been holding back. And until you mourn the version of you that didn't get what they needed, you'll keep building a life around what you think you deserve, instead of what you're truly ready to claim. So no, you're not behind. You're grieving. And the second you stop resisting that truth, everything else can finally begin to move. Most people don't need a new plan. They need permission. You've been looking for the next plan, the perfect system, the magic routine that'll finally unlock your life. But deep down, you already know. It's not about strategy. You've read the books, watched the videos, tried the habits, and still, something feels blocked. That block isn't a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of permission. Permission to be honest, to say out loud, I'm tired. To admit that something inside you has outgrown the life you keep trying to maintain. But that kind of honesty is terrifying, because it risks unraveling the image, the one you've built for years, the one that says, I'm fine, I've got it handled. You're not waiting on a better method. You're waiting on yourself, to stop pretending, to stop negotiating with expectations you don't even believe in anymore. Because what if the thing keeping you stuck isn't your age, your past, or your failures, but your refusal to admit that you want more, that you want peace, that you want joy, that you want something different, even if it's messy and late. That kind of truth doesn't ask for a plan, it asks for permission. And the moment you give it, you don't need to figure everything out. You just need to stop lying about where you are. That's when movement begins, not from hustle, from alignment. Time doesn't heal. Attention does. You heard it all your life. Time heals all wounds. But let's tell the truth. Time doesn't heal. Time hides. Time covers. Time makes it easier to pretend something didn't leave a mark. And that's why you can live 30 years and still feel the echo of a moment from age 15. That's why you can outgrow a place but still shrink when someone raises their voice. That's why you can build a beautiful life and still wake up feeling hollow. Because healing doesn't happen with distance, it happens with attention. You have to look, not to relive, but to reclaim. You have to feel what your younger self wasn't allowed to feel. You have to give presence to the version of you that never got closure. Not for drama. But for truth. Because when you hold your own story with clarity, without minimizing it, romanticizing it, or editing it, something changes. You're no longer at the mercy of your past. You're in relationship with it. You can say, yes, that happened. But I'm not building my future from that wound anymore. That sentence alone can reset decades. Not because you erased what happened, but because you stopped letting it narrate everything that came after. The pattern will keep repeating until you see it. You tell yourself it's bad luck, that it's random, that you just attract the wrong people, the wrong jobs, the wrong situations. But what if it's not random? What if your life is trying to teach you something by repeating what's unresolved? You keep meeting the same kind of person, ending up in the same kind of situation, facing the same kind of emotional wall. And it feels frustrating, but it's not punishment. It's invitation. Because your nervous system will seek out what's familiar, even if it's painful, until you give it a new story to believe in. Patterns don't break with time. They break with awareness. The moment you pause long enough to say, I've been here before. I recognize this dynamic. This feeling is old. That's when the loop weakens. Not because you've fixed everything, but because you finally see it. And what you see clearly, you stop submitting to blindly. Sometimes, 15 minutes of radical honesty can do what 30 years of repetition couldn't. It can stop the wheel. It can break the trance. It can return you to yourself before the pattern ever began. Your future isn't asking for more effort. It's asking for alignment. You've tried harder. You've worked longer. You've pushed yourself past exhaustion. And yet, there's still that quiet dissatisfaction. Not because you're lazy, not because you're ungrateful, but because effort isn't the issue. Your future doesn't need more hustle. It needs alignment. It needs you to stop being exceptional at things you no longer care about. To stop performing for standards that don't reflect who you've become. Because you can achieve a lot and still feel misaligned, still feel off, still feel like a stranger in your own life. Alignment isn't about comfort. It's about clarity. The clarity to admit, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done proving myself. I'm ready to build a life that doesn't require me to disappear to survive it. That's the pivot point. That's when everything changes. Not because you've earned it, but because you stop trying to earn being yourself. What if you stopped chasing effort and started honoring direction? What if alignment, not intensity, became your measure of success? That's how the next 30 years become different. Not because you did more, but because you finally started doing what's real. Why I tell you, if this was the last video you ever watched, I wouldn't give you advice. I wouldn't offer 5 steps. I wouldn't tell you to stay strong. I tell you this. You don't need to start over. You need to come back. Back to the version of you that existed before all the edits. Before the masks. Before the years of shape-shifting for approval. I tell you that redemption doesn't look like a second chance. It looks like standing still. Right here. Right now. Not to rewind, but to realize you don't have to keep running. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to prove you're still worthy. You don't have to keep negotiating with the parts of you that were never the problem. I'd remind you that the real you, the one who felt things deeply, the one who knew when something didn't feel right, the one who trusted quiet intuition over loud opinions, that version isn't lost, just buried. Under roles. under years, under survival, but not erased. And sometimes all it takes is a single moment of radical honesty to set everything in motion again. Maybe that moment is this one. Not to change your life overnight, but to open the door you forgot was always yours to walk through. You can't undo 3 decades, but you can undo the story that says those decades still define you. Right now. Not in a month. Not when you feel more prepared. Now. Because healing isn't about going back. It's about arriving in this moment with all your truth, with all your pain. With all your readiness to stop performing survival and start practicing presence. 15 minutes. Of honesty. Of silence. Of feeling the weight you've been trained to ignore. That's all it takes to shift direction. Not because you erase your past, but because you stop letting it write your future. And if something in you stirred during this, if you felt the crack, the breath, the break, that's not weakness. That's arrival. Subscribe. Not to follow me. But to follow through on the version of you that's been waiting to be seen. I'm the Time Distorter, and I'll be here every time you stop counting what you lost and start reclaiming what was never truly gone.